Hello and welcome to the Situation Report today. Glad to have you joining me. This is the show where we do our very best to give you the information and perspectives you need to navigate an ever-changing culture. My name is Jeremy Stoliker, and I am very thankful to be able to have this time with you today. And I want to talk about something that is an issue that many of us are aware of. Many have been touched by to one degree or another. But it's also one of those issues that can be on the side. It can be an issue that we say, well, that happened to them, or I know somebody that happened to, or I've heard about that. I'm aware of that kind of on the periphery, but don't have a strong connection to it. I want to talk about this because it is something, number one, that all of us need to know about. Number two, that is on the rise, which is what we'll talk about today in this article. And then number three, it's something that affects different communities in different ways, but there is hope on the other side. The topic that we will discuss today is the topic of suicide. We address this from time to time over the course of the year. A lot of the reason for that is because of the work that we do outside of this show, the Mighty Oaks Foundation, the organization that I'm a part of. We work with veterans and active duty service members and folks in the first responder community. And many people are aware of this. You may or may not be aware that there is a huge problem with suicide in those communities. In fact, in the veteran community, we talk about 22 veterans a day taking their lives, and that's a number many people are familiar with. Recent studies would suggest that that number is much, much higher, probably at least double that. 40 or more veterans every single day taking their own lives in the active duty community. Those who are currently serving, almost 5 a day taking their lives. The first responder community, very high numbers, harder to nail those numbers down because they're not reported the same way. But this is a major issue. It's a major problem. And when I think about this, I often think about it from the military perspective. Those men and women who have served or are serving are ending their lives because they come to the end of a road. They conclude that there is no hope and there is no direction, and that it would be easier to just end their life and let the people around them pick up the pieces. But what we're seeing culturally across the culture throughout our country is that the suicide rate outside of the military and outside of the first responder community is also increasing. There are a lot of reasons for that. But I came across this article in the Christian Post, and the title of the article is this: Suicide reached record high in 2022 as vast differences among sexes remain. That's a report from the CDC. This article was written by Samantha Common of the Christian Post. And I want to work through this, talk about some issues that are unique in the military community, even some things, some initiatives that we have as an organization to address this. But this is very important that we are aware of not only the issue, but that we understand it's an issue that is increasingly touching men and women that we live around and work with perhaps. And we need to know what to do about that. So we're going to start working through this. The article starts this way. Suicide rates in the United States reached a record high last year, with nearly 50,000 people ending their lives in 2022 alone, according to provisional data released by the U.S. Centers for Disease Prevention. 50,000 people ending their lives in 2022 alone. That number is enormous. I'll say this, and some of this is referenced in this article, but I know this to be true in the veteran community, in the first responder community. When we talk about suicide numbers, so we would connect a death to suicide. It was self-inflicted. That person took their own life. In order for local police departments and governments to come to the conclusion in the way that reporting is done, all of that is very hard to follow sometimes. But in order for a coroner, based on the investigation done by a police department, the way that coroner comes to the conclusion that he will write on a death certificate that something was suicide, the criteria for that, it has to be very, very clear that that was a suicide and not an accidental death or something else. So when we look at these 50,000 people that ended their lives in 2022 alone, understand that that's 50,000 people that police officers and coroners and local governments concluded, based on the evidence, it's very clear they took their lives. Why do I say that? Because the actual numbers of people who take their lives, and we would never be able to quantify this, it is much, much higher than that 50,000 number. Hey, Situation Report, Jeremy Stolniker here. We've all heard about DC politicians and their incredibly well-timed stock trades. Well, according to veteran trader Ross Givens with Traders Agency, it's all true. These politicians have made absolute fortunes for themselves trading stocks. Ross has revealed there's a largely unknown legal loophole that allows regular people, patriots like you and me, to see when these elite insiders are buying up stocks and how to follow their lead to incredible profit opportunities. Now, Ross has been doing this for a long time. He's a former vice president of investment management at JP Morgan Chase. He's been trading stocks for almost 20 years and teaching clients how to trade their own money for almost a decade. And we've just been blown away by everything Ross has revealed, including exactly what this trading loophole is and how it works, how he's learned from these insiders for nearly a decade, and how the stock picks have gained 88% in 7 days, 234% in 8 weeks, and even 1,787% in 2 years. Go to theinsidertrades.com to start following these insiders yourself and get a free stock pick of one of the hottest symbols that is seeing huge insider buying right now. That website is theinsidertrades.com to see when these political insiders are buying stocks and get your free stock pick. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Many accidents that happen were indeed self-inflicted wounds, people attempting to end their lives. How do we know this? Because we know people, and in the work that I do, talk to these people all of the time. Folks who attempted to take their lives, failed for one reason or another, and they say things like, when that car went off the road, it's because I drove it off the road. I was trying to kill myself. That accidental overdose, it wasn't accidental. What was accidental is I didn't take enough pills. I have these conversations all of the time. And so we know that these numbers are much higher than reported. But if the number is 50,000, that is unbelievable. That is an enormous pandemic. We like to talk about pandemics, right? We're talking about that a lot. This is huge. This is such a problem. We'll continue. All right. According to the provisional data report released Thursday, that's last week, 49,449 people died via suicide in 2022, increasing by more than 1,000 deaths. That's 2.6% since the previous year. Accounting for differences between the sexes, men, 39,255, were more likely than women, 10,194, to die by suicide in 2022, with the rates for both increasing by 4% since the previous year. The suicide rate among males in 2021 was approximately 4 times higher than the rate among females, the CDC reported. Males make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of suicides. All right, let's stop there for just a second. Males make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of suicides. We see this in the veteran and first responder communities as well. Males are much more likely to end their lives by suicide, by way of suicide, than are females. The article goes on. The CDC based its provisional data on death certificate data. However, the Public Health Agency noted that provisional data is an estimate, as the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics has not fully reviewed the data. Daniel Huerta, Vice President of the Parenting and Youth Initiative at the Evangelical Parachurch Organization Focus on the Family, believes that one factor contributing to rising suicide rates is access and exposure to things that work against the core thirst of humanity. And by that, he's referring to life, the core thirst of humanity. People are finding themselves empty and thirsty with nowhere to go to satisfy their deep thirsts, Huerta told the Christian Post in a Monday statement. And kids are missing out on learning how to lose, fail, and persevere through weaknesses because they are told that life is about pursuing happiness and self-fulfillment, only to find dissatisfaction and emptiness. He cited the words of Jesus, according to John 7:37, in which the Lord instructs all who are thirsty to come to him and drink. According to Huerta, society continues to remove God from the picture when only he can satisfy humanity's core needs. And it goes on talking about Huerta and some of the things that he said. She comes down to the closing paragraphs of this article. Among racial groups, white people accounted for the most deaths by suicide in 2022, 37,459, followed by Hispanics or Latinos, 5,120, and Blacks, African Americans, 3,825. Individuals between the ages of 25 and 44 had the highest number of suicides in 2022 at 16,843. A lot of numbers are given here. Nearly 11,000 elderly people, 65 and older, died via suicide in 2022, while 6,529 individuals ages 10 to 24 years died from suicide. That alone, 6,529 between the ages of 10 and 24. Regarding the suicide method, firearms were involved in more than half of all suicides in 2022. Suffocation was the second most common method at 26%, followed by poisoning, while other methods made up 8%. And the article goes on, unbelievable data. And I'm thankful that we have this data. I wish that more people were aware of it and understood what all of it means. But some of the big takeaways here for me, as we see a rise in suicides across the country, and I believe that, as I mentioned, this is based on underreporting. This is based on the best that we can do to gather this information, but there are a lot of people out there who have also taken their lives and their deaths have been ruled accidental or something like that. I believe that as bad as this number is, the number will continue to grow. I do agree with this guy Daniel Huerta from Focus on the Family, that a major issue here is that we have removed God from society and we're continuing to push out any remnants of God in our society. You go back to the 60s when prayer was removed, and that began the long, slow, gradual decline as we moved away from God. Even into the last couple of years, going through a pandemic when so many institutions were shut down, others were allowed to stay open. Churches became a major focus for the government, deeming churches as unnecessary, and churches shutting down. The church in so many areas losing its voice, Christian people unwilling to stand up for the truths of the Bible, the truths of Scripture, losing influence on society, where the Bible tells us as Christians we are to be salt, that preservative light, showing the direction forward. So many Christians and so many Christian institutions and so many local churches have lost that voice. So I absolutely concur here with Daniel Huerta that so much of what we're seeing is the result of pushing God out. When there is not a moral absolute, when there is not a place to find hope, and again, I've talked about this so often, but what is hope? Hope is looking outside of your situation, outside of your circumstance, outside of the circle that you're standing in, and understanding there is someone who is bigger than all of this. And that someone I would suggest is God. God, the Creator. He's bigger than your circumstance, bigger than your situation. He's outside of time and space. Hope comes when we put our trust, our confidence, and our focus in Him. And when you remove God, then the only conclusion people can come to, really, honestly, is that what is inside of their circle, what they see, what they feel, what they experience, is the best that life has to offer. And if what they're experiencing, seeing, living through has no value beyond this moment, then the natural conclusion is to say, well, there is no reason for me to continue. That is a major reason we're continuing to see the increase in suicide. Another issue that is not brought up here, again, this is one that in the veteran community is talked about often, is the prescription drug use epidemic. We have so many folks, it increases year after year. Other studies and articles could be put alongside of this one to show at least the correlation, if not the causation, of an increase in suicides, as we have also seen an increase in medication for things like depression, anxiety, and other mental health medications, so-called prescription medication. Prescription medication is on the rise, and often what that does is it deadens a person's sense of right and wrong, or the emotional sense that causes people to even hesitate to do something that would bring self-harm. And so we're seeing that as well. Again, we move God out of the equation. We continue to have the same problems that humanity has always had, but we don't have God as a solution. And so we do our best to medicate away those problems, those feelings, those thoughts. And that has historically and continues to provide really the platform for many to end their lives. So we see that happening as well. And then we see the rise in platforms that allow for comparison that is unrealistic, as well as harassment or bullying. This is an issue that is often talked about. But when we look at these more than 6,000, almost 7,000 young people from 10 to 24 who've taken their lives, so much of that goes back to a problem, really this pitfall of comparison, looking at their lives as compared to other people's lives and concluding, mine is not that good, it could never be that good, I have no reason to go on, as well as we could see bullying on social media and those other issues that we talk about. So many contributors here, so many contributors. But what we need to get a hold of is not only the fact or the reality that these numbers continue to climb. We need to understand that there is a very real danger of people we know, people we care about taking their lives. We need to understand that temporary solutions and temporary fixes that make people happy or make them less sad is indeed only temporary. There needs to be something more permanent, something eternal. So we need to understand all of that. And then we need to go back to, again, as Daniel Huerta said in this article, his focus on the family has put forward and is absolutely true. We need to go back to a reality, an understanding of truth. On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary, with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell at MyPillow wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of their other amazing products you've had your eye on. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio podcast square and use promo code SITREP to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98, or call 800-870-0283. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code SITREP, or call 800-870-0283. If we do not have the right foundation on which we build our lives, and as the Bible says, we will build lives, those homes that will crumble. And as we've taken the foundation of eternal truth away, men and women building houses encounter the storms that all of us encounter in lives, and those storms cause those buildings that are built on shaky or less than solid ground to crumble. And the crumbling can look a lot of different ways to a lot of different people in different circumstances. But so often it causes a life to get to the point where the bad is so overwhelming, the light is blocked out, and hope is removed. We have to get back to a place where we understand that the foundation has to be right, where no amount of therapy and no amount of medication and no amount of recreation and other things that we get ourselves involved in will be able to take away the pain and the hurt and give us hope. This is what we, through the work of the Mighty Oaks Foundation, do our very best to communicate to men and women who have served in the military, are serving in the military, are serving as first responders. Maybe they're married to someone who has. They've been through so many difficult things in their lives. They've experienced trauma, perhaps even early in their lives, that they brought into their military or military service or service as first responder. And as they carry that into their lives, perhaps going through a process of life change or separation from those institutions that they once cared about, they can become so overwhelmed by either the past or the lack of what they see as hope or direction for the future that they conclude that it would be easier to just stop, to give up, to quit. And what we do through our programs at the Mighty Oaks Foundation is we start off with the premise that there is a creator. That the creator God, he created us and he gave us, when he created us, purpose. And with that purpose comes hope and direction. If we understand that in spite of what may have happened in our past or what we see potentially happening or not happening in the future, if we understand that God has given us purpose and hope and direction, then we can continue to move forward in spite of what is happening or has happened. See, this is what's missing in our culture and in our society. It's that understanding that there is a God who's outside of time and space. There is hope that is beyond what we are experiencing right now. What you're seeing in life or feeling or going through in your life right now, that's not all there is. There is a God who's bigger than all of it, and it's a God who loves you and cares for you and has given you purpose and direction. And if you'll align your life to that, and if you'll move into that, then those traumas, trials, difficulties, immediate circumstances, those will happen because they happen, but they won't control the decisions that you make because you're moving toward a point, a goal that is eternal. We have to have that point fixed. I remember years ago listening to a podcast. It was one of the episodes that the Freakonomics podcast did. If you're familiar with Freakonomics and their podcast, they get into the economics certainly, but the math, the statistics behind so many issues in society, and they did an episode on suicide. Very interesting episode. Several years ago, I listened to that. But one of the things they talked about on there was research that had been done surveying people who had attempted suicide but done so unsuccessfully. And obviously, that's the only way we can really get into the minds and the hearts and the attitudes of people who do complete suicides. Asked these people about their circumstance, what they were thinking, what they were doing. And one of the conclusions that they came to was that the vast majority of people who end their lives, they commit suicide. The vast majority, well over 50%, I think it was around 75 or 80%, made the decision to end their lives 6 minutes before the action was taken. And again, these are surveys from people who attempted suicide unsuccessfully. But they said, yeah, I was feeling bad, or this situation came into my life, this circumstance happened, and I was dealing with that. And I made a decision I was going to end my life, and within 6 minutes, I took the action that was intended to end my life. This is why you see people who jump off of bridges and use firearms because it's accessible. They can get a hold of that. They can do what they need to do because it's there. This is why people ingest medication that is available to them. That's why so often when you see people take their lives, they do it with what is handy, what is close. And this is the reason we need to make sure that our foundation is in place before the event. Make sure that we understand what we're moving toward or who we're moving toward before the events, before the difficulties, before the trials, before the traumas of life. Because when those waves come over us, those waves can be so overwhelming that we respond in a moment where, given enough time, we wouldn't respond. But we respond in a moment because we have nothing else to focus on or to move toward. We talk often about resiliency and the fact that to be a resilient person, to be resilient in life, is to decide before the event. That when the difficulties arise, we'll continue to move forward. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And we haven't taught young people. And we haven't equipped middle-aged and older people to make that decision, to understand the truth that there is hope beyond their situation, and then to know how they can move into that truth. This is such a huge issue. When we talk about suicide, it breaks my heart. Again, being involved in the work that we do, I've known several people that have taken their lives, many, many, many who have attempted to take their lives. I know of homes that were broken because of a very temporary feeling that led to a very permanent decision. Husbands or wives, kids that will forever have to work to put their lives back together because of the death of a loved one. Asking questions, feeling guilt, wondering if they are the reason that that action was taken. It touches so deep. I had a conversation with someone just last week. For many years, I thought that suicide was a cowardly act, and I think a lot of people feel that way. It's the most cowardly thing you can do. Then I started to talk to people who had attempted to take their lives, and I've come to understand that when a person is in that frame of mind, it's neither cowardly nor heroic. They're in a mental state where something like that makes perfect sense. They're overwhelmed by circumstance and overwhelmed by a situation and overwhelmed by emotion and removed of any hope. That decision, it makes sense. And we have got to get to the place where we take this issue seriously enough that we understand people deal with this, that it's on the rise, but that we are going to begin putting in people right now what they need, equipping them so that when the moment does arise in their life, they're able to continue moving forward in a good way. There's so much more that can be said on this, but I read this article and just thought, man, this is so important. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it more. So many do not understand just how big this issue really is, and it is enormous. One of the initiatives that we have at the Mighty Oaks Foundation is to end veteran suicide. We talk about ending veteran suicide, and people have pushed back on that over the years. How in the world are you going to end veteran suicide? Do you really believe you can end veteran suicide? And the answer is probably not, but we do believe that we have programs that if every veteran in America attended, it would end veteran suicide. The problem is getting every veteran in America to attend a program where they can learn about the hope found in Christ. But yes, if everyone attended, we could end veteran suicide. It probably won't happen, but we want to continue to draw awareness to the problem, as I'm doing today, but then from the awareness to point to a solution. And we certainly have found a solution through the programs that we're a part of. We've allowed God to do the work that He desires to do. And as thousands of men and women have attended our program, the vast majority, 99% plus, have gone back into a life to rebuild what was broken, to continue carrying forward what is whole. And we've seen tremendous success measured in lives rebuilt, relationships restored, hope found, and forward movement taking place in lives. This year, as Veterans Day approaches, and it's a few months off, November 11th is Veterans Day, of course, but as Veterans Day approaches, we sat down as a team and said, what can we do to draw attention to the issue, but point to the solution found in Christ, in a relationship with God through the Mighty Oaks Foundation? What can we do? And we decided on what we're calling the 22 for 22 campaign. 22 for 22 challenge is what it really is all about. So I will go ahead and just run. I'm going to run. I'm going to run a lot. 22 marathons in 22 days. The last marathon will be on Veterans Day. And the reason I'm going to do that, I do a lot of running, and I participate in a lot of endurance events But the reason I'm doing that is to draw attention to the problem. We are told that 22 veterans a day take their lives. Again, we believe the number is much higher than that, but that's the number that people recognize. So we're going to take 22 days of me running a marathon a day to draw attention to this issue. We also then have a platform that's built. You can find all of this on my social media pages. Of course, go to the Mighty Oaks Foundation social media page. You can find connections and links out to all of this, and I'd love for you to check that out. But we have a platform set up so that you can participate either by giving, and we want to raise money to continue to put men and women through our programs, to support them, scholarship them through our programs, or you can participate yourself. And you don't have to run 22 marathons a day, but you can run 1 mile a day if you like, do some other activity for 22 days, ask people to sponsor you in that. And as they sponsor you, that money will be used to support men and women through the programs of the Mighty Oaks Foundation. That is the 22 for 22 challenge through Mighty Oaks. And you can find that at mightyoaksprograms.org on our webpage or on any of our socials. And I'd encourage you to go and check those out. But we all need to do something. This is what we've chosen to do as an organization this year. But we're constantly working to address this issue, and we need to be very diligent to address this issue, not only with the veteran community, but in our society and our culture at large. Understand that it's a problem, understand that it exists, but beyond understanding it's a problem, that is drawing awareness, realize there is a solution, and that solution is found in a relationship with God through Christ. And I hope that if you're struggling with this, man, get the help you need. There are so many organizations that can help you. Let someone know you're struggling with this. Don't keep this to yourself. These thoughts, these issues, these emotions, they thrive in the dark. Let someone know. Get the help that you need. Call the National Suicide Hotline. You can find that on Google or just about anywhere else, and talk to someone. But tell a friend, tell folks that you're struggling with this. Let them know you're going through that, and get the help that you need. Understand that ultimate help is found in that foundation that comes in a relationship with God. But if you're not struggling, you may know someone who is. Keep your ears open, listen to what people say, understand what people are going through, and point them to the eternal hope found in Christ, because that is where our hope is to be found. And I hope that that's a help to you today, a little bit different perhaps, but bringing up this issue and talking through this and seeing reports like this, it's heartbreaking because it impacts so many lives and so many families. We can't go back and undo what's been done, but we can take a proactive stance as believers and point people to Christ, and I encourage you with that. I hope that's a help to you today. Spend some time thinking about this. Again, you can find this article on ChristianPost.com. It's entitled "Suicide Reached Record High in 2022 as Vast Differences Among Sexes Remain." And that's from this week, and you can find that there. Please go and check that out as well. Thank you for listening and or watching. Really appreciate it. Take some time to subscribe to the podcast if you have not yet done that. And we'd love for you to join this conversation. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
We were not made to live in isolation. Sadly, many of our veterans feel they need to fight their battles alone. This self-isolation has led to the staggering statistic of more than 20 veterans taking their lives every day.
A lot of guys end up drinking, a lot of guys end up losing hope. Some of them will go to the VA and they'll try to get, prescription medications to help with PTSD. They'll get pills for anxiety, they'll get pills because they can't sleep, now they'll get pills for depression. Before they know it, they're taking 12 different medications. And when it's not working out, these guys lose hope, and that's why there's 23 guys a day committing suicide.
The mission of Mighty Oaks is to eradicate the veteran suicide epidemic and help our warriors change their legacies. As a result, we've been able to help over 4,000 veterans and first responders by equipping them with the tools they need to live the lives they were created to live.
Everything they said just kept hitting me in the heart over and over and over again. It's like all the things that I didn't know that I needed to hear. And I opened my heart to God that week, dude, and I've been a different person ever since.
Our faith-based, peer-to-peer approach has one of the highest success rates of any program available today, offering hope and understanding to those who need it most. We provide our programs and resources, including travel, at no cost to our warriors.
I remember talking to a licensed social worker who actually handed me a pamphlet to Mighty Oaks. So I went. glad I did.
By aligning their lives to biblical principles, these men and women are able to lead their families, their communities, and our nation. Our mission is to serve and restore our nation's warriors and families who have endured hardship through their service to America, and to help them find new life purpose through hope in Christ. It's your generosity that can make a difference in the lives of the men and women who have fought for our country and our freedoms. Now that they're home, don't let them fight alone. Learn more at MightyOaksPrograms.org.
Hey, Situation Report, Jeremy Stolniker here. We've all heard about DC politicians and their incredibly well-timed stock trades. Well, according to veteran trader Ross Givens with Traders Agency, it's all true. These politicians have made absolute fortunes for themselves trading stocks. Ross has revealed there's a largely unknown legal loophole that allows regular people, patriots like you and me, to see when these elite insiders are buying up stocks and how to follow their lead to incredible profit opportunities. Now, Ross has been doing this for a long time. He's a former vice president of investment management at JP Morgan Chase. He's been trading stocks for almost 20 years and teaching clients how to trade their own money for almost a decade. And we've just been blown away by everything Ross has revealed, including exactly what this trading loophole is and how it works, how he's learned from these insiders for nearly a decade, and how the stock picks have gained 88% in 7 days, 234% in 8 weeks, and even 1,787% in 2 years. Go to theinsidertrades.com to start following these insiders yourself and get a free stock pick of one of the hottest symbols that is seeing huge insider buying right now. That website is theinsidertrades.com to see when these political insiders are buying stocks and get your free stock pick. Past performance is no guarantee of future results.